Hello everyone and welcome to the Cisco Support Committee. Today we present a live expert series webcast and our topic will be Introduction to Cisco Adaptive Security Appliance ASA version 9, Context-Aware Security and VPN Features. My name is Satish Chandran and I'll be moderating today's event. Our experts joining me today are Namit Agarwal and Rahul Govindan. Namit is a customer support engineer at the Cisco TAC. He has over 4 years of experience in the security domain. His area of expertise include ASA firewalls, IPS, and ASA context-aware security. He has been involved in various escalation requests from around the world. He holds a CCI certification in security. Rahul, who is a customer support engineer with the security TAC team, he works on security technologies such as VPN, Cisco ASA firewalls, authentication, and authorization accounting. His particular expertise is in the secure sockets layer VPN and IP security VPN technologies. He is also a CCI certified in security. Welcome Namit and welcome Rahul. And our expert panelists are Rudresh and Prapanch. They will help in answering some of your technical questions during the event. Now I'd like to briefly outline the format for today's expert series webcast. Our experts will start with a presentation on Introduction to Cisco ASA version 9, Context-Aware Security and VPN Features for the first hour of the program, and then we will dive into the live question submissions from the audience for the remainder of the event. During our live presentation, you may submit your technical questions to be answered by our presenter and the expert panelists using the Q&A box, which is on the right-hand side of this console. The team of technical experts is well versed in Cisco ASA, so please begin posting your questions now to give us the best chance of answering them. If you experience any technical issues, please post your question in the chat. We'll be asking polling questions during this webcast and we highly encourage you to participate by answering them. You may download a copy of today's presentation using the link that will be posted in the chat, and the document ID is 37105, which is on the Cisco Support Committee. Now I'd like to get started with today's event. So let's get started with the first polling question for you. The question is, what is your level of experience with Cisco ASA 9X software? Option A, I have never heard ASA 9X version before. Option B, I've heard of the ASA 9X version, but not used to it so far. And option C, I have used the ASA 9X version, but not the new features. And last option, option D, I'm using the new features from ASA 9X. So please take a moment to answer to this poll. Make sure to submit your questions as we will answer them later in the webcast. Now, I'd like to hand over the mic to our expert, Namit and Rahul, for the rest of the presentation. Over to you, Namit and Rahul.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Rahul Govindan. I'm a technical services engineer from Cisco, working with the security and VPN technologies. I have Namit with me on call today. He's also from the security technology from the ASA space, and he's also going to cover today's presentation with me on this webcast. So just to start off, we're just going to go through the agenda today. Today's agenda is basically going to be starting off with the introduction into the ASA 9.x image and the version. We're just going to go through what ASA 9.x means and the need for the ASA 9.x release. Then we're going to go through an overview of the new firewall features that have been introduced with this 9.x release on the ASA. Then we're going to go into our main section, ASA CX Context-Aware Security on the ASA, which is coming out with this 9.x release. Also, then we're going to cover the second half of our presentation with the ton of VPN features that have been introduced in the ASA 9.x. And then we're going to finish it off today with how do you go about upgrading your ASA to 9.x for people who haven't. I see a lot of people who have heard of the 9.x but have not used it so far. So this is going to be a information session for them. And finally, we'll take question and answers on any of the above sessions that we're going to cover. Now I'm just going to hand it off to Namit, who's going to start talking about the ASA 9.x release and the introduction into that image.
Thanks, Rahul. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Namit from the security tech team, and I work with Firewall and IPS. Talking about ASA 9.x, there has been a lot of buzz around the ASA 9.x version. Now, why did we come up with 9.x? The major reason is that earlier, before 9.x, we had a lot of platforms running different software versions. As you can see on the slide, 5505 till 5510, 20, 50, 80, and 85. They supported 8.0 to 8.4. Then you had ASA SM requiring a separate software release, 8.5. And you had the ASA Next Gen platform, which required 8.6. So that created a lot of confusion, and there was a need for a single software supporting all the platforms. That's when 9.x was born. So the major advantage of running 9.x is that we have a single unified software release that is compatible for all platforms, the old platforms as well, the ASA 5505s to 80, the next gen platforms, ASA 5500X, and our ASA module, the ASA SM as well. So it serves the major purpose of unifying all the platforms together so that we don't have to use different releases. And the ASA 9.x was first released in October 2012. So it's almost, it's 1 year now, and the version has matured quite a lot since then, and there's been a lot of new features added. So I'm going to talk about a couple of major new features that have been added to 9.x releases over the period of time that will come in handy for troubleshooting different issues or new concepts. So the first major feature that was added is the Cisco Cloud Web Security. I'm sure all of you must have heard about ScanSafe. The ScanSafe is the new cloud-based solution Cisco offers along with the ASA platform. So what the benefit of using ScanSafe is that you have a tar-based solution. The ScanSafe tar is handling all the web filtering, all your access control. The ASA is going to send traffic to a ScanSafe tar, which is sitting in the cloud. That way, ASA doesn't have to handle the extra overhead of filtering or processing any traffic. It just has to redirect or encapsulate and send all the traffic to the ScanSafe tar. And the ScanSafe tar is going to take care of all the policies, the access control, based on your organizational policies, what websites to allow, what to block, and the bandwidth issues. Everything will be taken care of by the ScanSafe tar. And also, the ASA can report what is the activity based on your user identity, based on a username, user group information. And the second major feature that was added was clustering. So I think this has been a requirement pending from Cisco for a long time, that we had the failover support on the ASA since quite a long time, but the failover pair meant that you can use only two ASAs in tandem, and one is going to be active and one is going to be standby. But there was a major requirement asking for a clustering support, which will help multiple devices as a backup for each other, and also bandwidth management. So starting 9.x, we added ASA clustering. It lets you group multiple ASAs together, and they act as a single logical device. It provides you with the ease of managing all the devices like a single device. And there are two things you can achieve with clustering. One is redundancy, like failover, but instead of 2 devices, now you can have up to 8 devices. And the other is throughput. You can use multiple ASAs, share the traffic between the ASAs, and that's why you'll have increased throughput. And ASA clustering was supported for 55, 80, 85 platforms. And the major requirement we need to keep in mind while configuring clustering is that they must be of the same model with the same hardware specifications. Now moving on to the next set of features, dynamic routing in security context. And I'm sure most of you, or at least some of you, might have run into this issue wherein you want to have dynamic routing on the ASA. You want the ASA to do dynamic routing for EIGRP or OSPF version 2, but you ran into the limitation that you had multiple security contexts, or you were using the firewall in multi-context mode. Now, starting 9.x, what we did was we added support for dynamic routing protocols in multiple context mode as well, so that you can configure the ASA, or you can make the ASA participate in the routing for EIGRP and OSPF version 2, even while you're running it in multi-context mode, not just in single context mode, but also in multiple context mode. The limitation still is that you cannot use OSPF version 3 or RIP or multicast routing in multi-context, but I think they might be added later on. But yeah, for now, I think this is a major upgrade, I would say, major change or major advantage that you can use dynamic routing with multi-context as well. The other feature that was added in multiple context mode was that you can have mixed firewall mode. What that means is that earlier, when you configure the firewall in multiple contexts, it has to be either in routed mode or in transparent mode. Similarly, if you configure the firewall in routed mode, then all the contexts are in routed mode, or if you configure the firewall in transparent mode, then all the contexts are in transparent mode. Starting 9.x, what we did was we added support to configure the firewall mode on basis of per context. So let's say you have 3 contexts on a firewall. So you can have one context as a routed mode, one context as transparent, the third one as a routed, or you can have all of them in transparent mode or a mixture, whichever way you want to configure your firewall. So that again is a very major leap, I would say, because I think there was a major requirement from the customer side that we need to support mixed firewall mode in the multiple context mode. Now, moving on to a couple of new features. They are not as big, I would say, as the previous features, but again, they do help in troubleshooting a lot of things. For example, the first feature is ability to view top 10 memory users. Now, I'm sure some of you must have run into the high memory utilization issue on the ASA, and troubleshooting high memory was not an easy task. You had to collect a lot of outputs, for example, show memory detail. Then you look at the show memory detail output and find out what is the fragment size that's being utilized the most. And then based on that, you collect the output of show memory bin size. Using that output, you can find out which is the process responsible for taking most of the memory or responsible for the memory leak. Now you see, before this command, you had to go through a lot of trouble to find out what is the process that is utilizing the maximum amount of memory. With the advent of this command, what it does is, show memory top usage. It's going to show you the top bin sizes allocated and the top 10 PCs for each allocated bin size. What that means is that, bin sizes is the fragment size. As the ASA memory is fragmented into different block sizes. So based on that, it will show you that what is the fragment size that's being utilized the most, what is the maximum amount of memory that's being utilized in a fragment size, and what are the top 10 PCs for each allocated bin size. So for example, you have fragment size 80 and 1556 or 15550. These are the 2 fragment bin sizes that are being allocated the most. Then it will show you what are the top 10 PCs being program counters or the processes which are utilizing those memory locations. What are the top 10 PCs using each of those bin size? And using this, you can find out which process is responsible for the high memory utilization or which is responsible for causing the memory leak. So you see, high memory troubleshooting has been made quite easy using just the single command, show memory top usage. Now, there were a couple of announcements for the AAA section. Like for example, you can configure the password policy for an administrator when using a local user database. So normally what happens is, when you used to configure authentication for CLI or ASDM access using the local username database, you had no limitation as to what kind of password standards you need to maintain, or is there a timeline associated with the password. Normally what happens with organizations is that the password, you'll get a mail or you'll get a notification that your password is about to expire. So that kind of control was never available in the AAA section. So what we added as an announcement was that now you can configure a password policy that requires a user to change their password after a specified amount of time, and also requires password standards such as minimum length and the minimum number of changed characters. So that is a major, I would say, a security booster, that you have more control over the password and you can have more, you can have stronger passwords now. Okay. And the next feature that was added was that you can configure the maximum number of simultaneous management sessions you can have on the ASA. That implies that earlier you could have only 5 maximum sessions for SSH or Telnet or ASDM, and there was no way of restricting that. Now you have the ability to control what can be the maximum number of simultaneous management sessions on the ASA. And about the image verification, earlier we used to support only MD5 algorithm for image verification. So as a increase in the security standard, we are now supporting SHA 512 image integrity check as well. And for that, the command which was used earlier was verify. So verify now supports SHA 512 algorithm as a parameter as well. The other, I would say, major enhancement with respect to troubleshooting on the ASAs was the CPU profiler. Now earlier, when you used to configure CPU profile, you could only configure the number of samples that would be taken for CPU profiling. Now, if I step back a little, what CPU profiling meant was you take the snapshot of the CPU at a specified time interval and you check what is the process that is utilizing the CPU at that time. Now, let's say I specify that do a CPU profile of 1,000 samples. That means that I'm going to sample the CPU, or I'm going to take a snapshot of the CPU 1,000 times at specified intervals. And that gave us control, that gave us a good data, but we still needed something, like a trigger mechanism that, let's say your CPU is fluctuating between 50 and 100. And you want to do the CPU profile, obviously, when your CPU is high. There's no point doing the CPU profiling when your CPU is below the baseline or at the baseline. So with this enhancement, we added two major features. One is you have the CPU profiler trigger based. You can trigger the CPU profiler based on a trigger condition. For example, you can specify that trigger the CPU profiler when the CPU goes beyond 50%. So that is a very useful thing to do, because now you have the control of doing the CPU profiling when you have a situation where the CPU is fluctuating or the CPU is varying with time. The other major feature that was added as part of the CPU profiler enhancement was that you can sample a specific process. What that means is that you can, for example, you have a process that is responsible for handling web VPN connections, and you want to see how the web VPN process utilizes the CPU. You want to, determine the CPU usage by the web VPN process over a period of time. Then that feature comes in handy. You can sample that CPU profile based on specifically that process. So the ASA is going to monitor the CPU utilization only for that process. Now, combining these two features, you can trigger CPU profiler, at a specific condition for a specified process. What that means is, for example, you are troubleshooting a situation where there is web VPN taking a lot of resources, and you want to monitor the CPU usage by web VPN. So what you can do is you can configure a CPU profiler condition, which means that trigger CPU profiling when the CPU goes beyond 50%, and the process that's utilizing the CPU is web VPN. So I'm sure that a lot of you are going to find it handy for troubleshooting high CPU issues. We ourselves in TAC find it very useful now. And so once you upgrade to 9.x, I hope that you're going to find it very useful. The other important thing that was done is, with respect to the TCP connection handling on the ASA, is that till now, by default, the half close timeout on the ASA was 5 minutes. And what we did was, we allowed, that in the configuration, you can decrease the half close timeout to a minimum value of 30 seconds. Because, sometimes what happens is that you might have a lot of half close connections. Sometimes the client didn't respond to a FIN from the server, or the server didn't respond to a FIN from the client, or there might be connectivity issues. In those cases, if your minimum timeout for the half close connection is 5 minutes, you'll have a lot of stale connection entries. And that might lead to some kind of a DOS attack on the ASA, because essentially you'll be utilizing all the connection resources on the ASA, thereby leading to lesser connection resourcing being available for valid connections. So hence the requirement to reduce the timeout to even a lower value, to 30 seconds. So I hope that you found the features which we just discussed on the new ASA 9.x version useful. And there are a couple of other features. You can reference the URLs in the reference section where the release notes are for the 9.x. There are a bunch of other features, but keeping in view the time, I could come up with only a specified list of features which are major in nature and which could help troubleshooting the ASA platform better. So coming to our next major platform, it's introduction to ASA CX. Now, sorry, what does CX means? As you can see, it says context-aware firewall. So the context, CX represents for context. So the ASA CX is a next generation firewall. The filtering capacity or the filtering capability of the ASA CX goes beyond the normal firewall capacity, which is the 5-tuple packet information. The 5-tuple packet information is your source IP, destination IP, source port, destination port, and protocol. So ASA CX goes way beyond that, and it looks deeper into the packet, not just blocking or restricting the traffic based on the layer 3 or layer 4 information. It can, some of the features are it can identify users based on usernames and groups. It can block application specific traffic. For example, you want to block a specific application. You want to block, for example, you want to block a specific game on Facebook. You want people not to play Farmville, but you want them to play Candy Crush. That is something you can do with ASA CX. Or if you want to block specific URLs based on regex or based on domain names, something as simple as domain names, also you can do on CX. Or if you want to block URLs based on their web reputation or a specific category. For example, you want to block all gambling websites or you want to block all pornographic websites. That is something you can do on ASA CX. Also, ASA CX has information about the client posture information. For example, what OS you're running, what service pack on Windows you're running, what kind of antivirus you have. We can make decisions based on the client posture as well. So these are the main features the ASA CX has, and how it differentiates from the old firewalls. So these are some of the features of ASA CX in detail. User ID, active and passive authentication. The ASA CX supports 2 authentication techniques for the users. I'm going to discuss about them in detail in further slides. The second feature is AVC broad and web. What AVC means is application and visibility control. Broad and web. Okay, so broad means that ASA CX is intelligent enough to do a broad check on the applications, and it has a greater visibility. So even if you have non-HTTP traffic, even if you have HTTP traffic flowing on non-standard ports, ASA CX still has the capacity or it still has the intelligence to determine what application is being used, and that's why it's called broad AVC, because it has the capacity goes beyond the web domain. And the same level of checks it can do for web traffic as well. It can inspect HTTP traffic and determine whether that HTTP traffic is actually HTTP traffic or there is something else being tunneled inside the HTTP traffic. So for example, if you have Skype flowing across the CX, or if you have any other application traffic across the CX which uses non-standard HTTP port, the ASA CX has its own set of signatures. So it has its own set of rules using which it identifies that what is the traffic flowing across itself, and it uses those signatures to mark and control the traffic. The third feature, which I'm sure a lot of people want, is SSL-TLS decryption. What that means is that you can filter HTTPS websites as well using CX, and so if you have any traffic which is tunneled in a SSL tunnel, that is still something that can be inspected by the CX, provided you enable decryption on the CX. HTTP inspection, we already discussed. HTTP inspection is something that CX does normally for all the HTTP traffic. You configure HTTP inspection based on your layer 3, layer 4 information, and the CX determines that what kind of HTTP traffic is this. URL filtering, it's plain filtering of URLs based on a regex you configure or based on domain names you can configure. Web reputation, CX can filter websites or domain names based on the reputation they have. For the web reputation score, it uses the Cisco SIO database. And CX also supports a very detailed reporting mechanism. You can generate reports, you can view events for all kind of traffic. You can filter events based on source IP, destination IP, protocol, what actions were taken for the traffic, and so you can do a lot of eventing as well. And CX supports layer 3 to 7 access control, layer 3 being your IP information, layer 4 being your port information. You can configure policies based on source IPs or the basic 5-tuple information. Now, this is how you configure traffic forwarding for CX. Normally, so what happens is, sorry, what happens is that the traffic first hits the ASA, since ASA is going to be your edge firewall for that traffic. So once the traffic hits the ASA, it's gonna, you're gonna use the ASA MPF, the modular policy framework. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with what the modular policy framework is. If you're not aware, I'll just give you a little background that what we do is we configure a layer 3 class map and use that class map to match the traffic. For example, you want traffic between subnet A and B to be redirected to the CX module. So what you do is you configure an access list saying that traffic from A to B has to be matched, and you attach that ACL to the class map, and then you attach that class map to a policy map. So you define the traffic first, you create a class map, match the traffic, and you attach that class map to the policy map, and then you use that policy map to specify the service policy. The service policy is the action taken for that policy map. So if you look at the slide, you'll see that we have defined a test policy map called global_policy. The class map is class-default, and if you look at the action, it says CX-SC, which is our Cisco content security module, and fail open auth proxy. What fail open means is that if the module fails, still keep forwarding the connections. There's another option called fail close. What that means is, if the module fails, start dropping those connections which are redirecting to the CX module. So sometimes, some companies have very stringent or very strict security measures. In that case, you can use the fail close option, wherein if the module fails, you stop forwarding the traffic, or you start dropping the traffic which was supposed to be forwarded to the CX. The auth proxy at the end, I'll talk more about it. As I said, there are two authentication mechanisms. So one is auth proxy, which is the active authentication, and one is the other kind of authentication called the passive authentication. These are the config lines you use from the ASA CLI. Now, if you're managing the ASA from the Prism is our multi-device manager. I'm going to talk more about how the Prism works with the CX. It's a multi-device manager which is used to manage multiple devices like ASA CX. And if you're managing the ASA using the Prism, it's a very simple GUI config. You enable or disable. You use that toggle. You toggle the button for traffic redirection. You specify what TCP, UDP ports need to be redirected, and you specify the traffic from the interfaces. Which interface need to be used to redirect the traffic. Now, moving on to the next slide. This is the CX management structure. So CX supports two kind of management structures. One is on-box management, and the other is off-box management. Now, configuration for CX, eventing, generating reports, it's supported in both on-the-box management and off-the-box management. In on-the-box management, it's something similar to ASDM or IDM. I hope most of you have used the ASDM at some point. So what essentially on-the-box management means that the Prism or the web server resides on the CX itself. And when you log into the CX using the management IP of the CX on port 443 HTTPS, you are presented with the GUI of the CX. So there's an Apache server running on the CX, and you use that to manage the CX on box. Now for off-box management, there is, it's called the Prism. There's a server running on a Windows virtual machine or any kind of UCS appliance, and there's a centralized server running on that, and that can be used to, do a multi-device management for ASA CX and ASA as well. Now, when you have to manage devices using the off-box Prism, you log in from a client machine to the off-box Prism or the Prism server. You get a client instance, and you use that to manage the ASA CX box. So apart from configuration and eventing, what you can do is you can control based on the user, you can control the access. For example, in ASDM, you have various user level privileges. Similarly, you can have role-based access control, that when the user logs in with a specified username, what level of access he has. Now, here's a little insight into the ASA CX architecture. As you see at the bottom is the data plane. Now, data plane is the interface between the ASA and the ASA CX that's used to exchange the traffic between ASA and ASA CX. So whatever traffic the ASA CX or the ASA are going to exchange for filtering or for access control, that traffic is shared over the data plane. Control plane is the interface that is used by the ASA and the ASA CX for control plane traffic, for heartbeat, or for determining the status of the module. The management plane is used by the CX for management related services. So as I talked about earlier, the on-box management method or the off-box management method, that uses the management plane. So when you log into the CX on the management IP, the management plane is the one that's handling those connections. TLS proxy is the engine which manages the TLS connections. If you have HTTPS filtering enabled, if you have decryption enabled, then the ASA CX uses the TLS proxy software module to handle the HTTPS connections. And you have the HTTP engine with AVC, URL category, and reputation. So HTTP engine is handles the major chunk of the processing. It is responsible for application visibility and control. This is the one that handles the URL categorization and reputation, URL filtering. And if you have any non-HTTP traffic that requires to be inspected, then that is handled by the inspection engine. And you have the authentication and the identification module. As I talked about the authentication modes earlier, this module is responsible for handling the user authentication, for determining the user policies, for determining what is the username that's generating traffic, what is the group name that's generating traffic. And then you have the eventing and reporting module that is responsible for generating reports for troubleshooting. For example, if you want to generate some diagnostic logs, or if you want to generate some reports, or if you want to look at the events on the event manager, that's when the eventing and the reporting service module comes into play. So if we look at how the packet flow is across the ASA CX, there's a simple outline. So the first step being that the packet is received on the ingress interface of the ASA. First, the ASA is going to do a lookup and determine whether there is any existing connection for that flow. If there is already an existing connection for that flow, it's straight away going to jump to the inspection checks. If there is no existing connection, then it's going to check whether the ACL on that interface is permitting that connection. If no, it's going to drop it. If yes, it's going to move on to the next step, which is determining if there is a matching xlate. That means if there is a NAT config for that flow. If there is no matching xlate for that traffic, it's going to drop it. If there is, then it's going to finally reach the inspection flow. So once it reaches the inspection or the security check, it's going to use the MPF, which we discussed earlier, the policy map framework, to determine whether this traffic needs to be sent to the CX module or not. If yes, it will send the traffic to the CX module over the data plane. If no, it's going to forward it ahead and go on with the NAT IP header, the IPS inspection, and then forward it out of the egress interface. So what we learned from this slide is that the CX inspection is applied before the NAT is done. So this is the packet flow, and this packet flow is followed in the reverse direction for any traffic that egresses the ASA. Now, the other important concept is how the packet flow is between the ASA and the CX. How exactly do they talk to each other? So one important takeaway from this slide is that the ASA CX is never going to see the traffic directly from the link. It's the ASA that's always going to send the traffic to the CX. It's never going to be the other way around. So the traffic is going to hit the ASA on the physical ports. There's a fabric switch on this is an internal architecture. So there's a fabric switch on the inside that's going to control the traffic flow between the CX and the different modules on the ASA. And then the traffic is going to go to the CPU complex. There's a crypto engine. If the traffic is supposed to be decrypted or encrypted, it's going to go via the crypto engine and then via the backplane to the CX. Now, if you look at the CX architecture, it's somewhat on similar lines to the ASA. It has a fabric switch of its own. It has a CPU complex of its own. And the crypto engine or the regex engine on the CX is not used because the CX is not going to handle any crypto traffic. So these are the software modules on the CX in somewhat more detail, and how the flow of communication is between the different software modules. So at the bottom is the data plane, and then there's a fast path. So once the connection is established, it's going to be in the fast path, and then the broad AVC is checked first. So what happens, the broad AVC does is, it looks at the connection, it looks at the data, the layer 7 information, and it determines whether this traffic is HTTP traffic, whether this traffic is TLS traffic, or it's non-HTTP, non-TLS traffic. Based on that verdict, the traffic is going to be sent to the TCP proxy. Now, if you have decryption enabled, the ASA CX is going to intercept the traffic, the HTTPS traffic, and it's going to act as a proxy for all the TCP flow. If it's HTTP traffic, then the traffic is going to be sent to the HTTP inspector. Or if it's non-HTTP, non-TLS traffic, it's going to be sent to the inspector X software module. So as you can see, there's a traffic switch. That's the software module responsible for distributing traffic to the TLS proxy engine or HTTP inspector engine or the inspector X engine. So once the TLS proxy software module kicks in, it decrypts the traffic, and then it again determines whether the decrypted traffic is it's HTTP traffic or non-HTTP traffic. If it's HTTP traffic, it's sent to the HTTP inspector. If it's non-HTTP traffic, it's sent to the inspector X. So let me clarify a little. By decryption on TLS, I don't actually mean that the CX is actually going to decrypt all your traffic. It's not going to look at your encrypted information such as your banking information or passwords. It's going to intercept the certificate exchange. So what happens is, when the CX intercepts the HTTPS traffic, it's going to look at the client certificate. If it finds information on the client certificate, whether what URL you're trying to access, it's going to use that information. If it doesn't find that information, then it's going to look at the server certificate when the server responds, and based on that information, it's going to take the filtering decision. Now, looking at that, what we discussed just now, looking at the flow of the traffic. So first, the traffic hits the ASA CX, and then you do a L3, L4 check. You identify the access policies that the layer 3, layer 4 policies. What are we supposed to do with this traffic? Then there's a broad AVC check that determines what is the application or what is the protocol being transferred on that connection. Then the TCP proxy kicks in, and the CX is going to intercept the three-way handshake, the SYN, SYNAC, ACK process. The traffic is going to go through the TLS proxy then, and the ASA CX is going to intercept the certificate exchange, and it's going to proxy the encrypted traffic. The HTTP inspector, if the traffic is HTTP, then the traffic is going to go to HTTP inspector, and the CX is going to determine what kind of application you're using based on its own signatures, or what kind of URL category you're using, what is the reputation of that URL, and what is the user agent. So I'm sure most of you know what the user agent is, but I'm just going to talk about the user agent. So when you log into a website using a browser, if you look at the GET request header, there is a header there called a header field there called user agent. So user agent is normally the information related to your OS and your browser. If you're accessing a website from Firefox, normally your user agent will be Firefox. If you are accessing it from Chrome, your user agent is going to be Chrome. Sorry. So you can configure that, for example, you want certain websites to be allowed from Firefox, but you want them to be denied from Chrome. So you can use this user agent information to control or police this website, and that's how the user agent information comes in handy. Now, if then comes the question of whether you need to authenticate this user, you need to authenticate this traffic. That again, I'll talk about what are the different types of authentication, and based on all this information, that what is the 5-tuple information, what is the application type, what is the protocol type, what is the URL or the application you're accessing, and what is the user information, the CX takes a decision whether I'm supposed to allow this traffic or I'm supposed to deny this traffic. Once it makes that decision, it sends the response back to the ASA SSP if it's an allow decision. If it's a deny decision, it's just going to send the reset. Now, here's a quick functional overview about the CX. How these are the 3 major policy types on the CX. One is the identity. So that is used for identification or authentication. That how do you identify the user? The user which is going to access the website, what is the user information associated with that user? Is it an administrator? Is it a private user? Or what is the username? What LDAP group it belongs to? The second type of policy is decryption. Decryption specifies, decryption policy specifies what do you want to decrypt. So you can control with this policy that do you want to decrypt all traffic, or do you want to decrypt a specific set of traffic, or do you want to decrypt malicious traffic based on the web reputation, The third type of policy is access policies. That is the decision-making policy, that once all the information is obtained, what am I supposed to do with this traffic? Am I supposed to allow it or deny it? So, sorry, going about the different types of authentication. So the CX supports two types of authentication. First being active authentication, second being passive authentication. In case of active authentication, the CX intercepts the user traffic, HTTP or HTTPS, and it acts as an auth proxy client, authentication proxy. So I am not sure, but I guess most of you must have used the auth proxy functionality on the ASA. So this functionality is similar to that, wherein CX throws a challenge authentication response to the user, and based on the information provided by the user, it takes a decision whether to allow or deny that traffic. The second type of authentication is wherein you obtain the user authentication from an external source. So in this case, there is no auth proxy configuration. What CX does is it talks to an external AD agent or a CDA, a common directory access agent, or ASA. It gets the information from the VPN information associated with the user. Now, based on that user information, it takes a decision whether am I supposed to allow this traffic or deny this traffic. So there are two ways: active, the CX actively participates in the authentication, and passive, where the CX relies on a third party or external source for authentication information. Now, there are certain limitations associated with the TLS proxy feature on the CX. First being that the CX needs a CA certificate and a private key. So why we need the CA certificate and the private key is that, when the CX is going to intercept HTTPS traffic, the CX is going to offer this certificate to the client, and without this certificate, the CX cannot do HTTPS filtering. So that's why we need to import a CA certificate with a private key on before we configure HTTPS filtering. And also, this CA certificate needs to be something that the end users can trust. So it can either be a self-signed certificate or it can be a CA certificate generated by a third-party vendor, which is trusted by all by default. For example, a third-party certificate generated by VeriSign or TrustSec. But the thing is, otherwise, if you don't do that, what will happen is when you access HTTPS websites, you'll get prompted to add that certificate to exception. So normally, if you open that, on the browser on the left-hand side at the top, you have the lock icon. If you click on that, you can view the certificate information. So if CX is successfully filtering HTTPS traffic, then the certificate offered there will be the certificate which is configured on the CX, and that's why you get that the add to exception prompt. So once you add it to the trusted certificate list, you won't get that prompt anymore. Or the other option is you use the certificate which is trusted by all, such as VeriSign. The things which are not supported by TLS decryption is SSH decryption. So we do not support SSH decryption, and also client-side authentication. So in TLS, sometimes people use client-side authentication. That is something CX still does not support. So we only support server-side authentication. So here are a few commands which are available in the CX CLI that might come in handy. These are a basic set of commands which the CX supports. So the CLI, I agree, is not as rich as the ASA or the routers. But yeah, it does support some commands which do come in handy. First being the delete. If you want to delete certain files on the file system, the setup command that is used for basic configuration. The first time when you're going to configure CX with your network settings, for example, IP addresses, host names, domain name, DNS settings, your NTP settings. And the third command being system reload shutdown. Example, if you want to reboot or you want to shut down your blade. The fourth command, I think you're going to find it most useful, is the system upgrade or the revert command. So if you want to upgrade the CX OS, then you use this command, or if you want to roll back to the OS, you use the system revert command. There are some restrictions around the rollback, so we can refer to the release notes for that. And the other command, which sometimes what happens is, if you're running into an issue where the CX is stuck or some service has to be restarted, then you use the services start and stop command, which can be used to restart various services on the CX. Then you have the basic network test commands: ping, nslookup, traceroute, which are the same as any other command. And then if you want to view the management interface statistics, you use the show interface command. Or if you want to view the operational data, for example, you want to view what is the block size, or if there's a block size being depleted on the CX, or what is the platform utilization on the CX, that's when you use the command show op data. It supports a whole bunch of sub options. So I guess it'll be good to play around with the show op data command. And then there's the most detailed command, show tech support. It gathers most of the outputs which are required for troubleshooting. And you have the support tail log command, which supports which you can use to view the logs on the CLI. And as you know, the tail is the Linux keyword for the tail command as the Linux supports. And the next command is support diagnostics, which is one of the most useful commands for troubleshooting for collecting logs. Using this command, what it does is it packages, and you can upload a collection of logs to a server and all the debug info, including packet captures, your logs, or your diagnostic files. And the last command being config backup and restore. So config backup is obviously, you can back up all the config you have on the CX normally before the upgrade, or if you are reinstalling the CX, we would suggest to do a backup of the config. And the other command is the config restore command. If you already have the backed up config, you can use that to restore your existing config on the CX. And restore requires either a FTP or HTTP. And there are a couple of new CX features which were added recently, maybe a few days back. So starting with the latest CX version, we support SSP 40 and 60 along with the CX. So till now, so let me go back a little. With ASA 5585, we have multiple platforms, SSP 10, 20, 40, and 60. Till now, we were supporting CX with SSP 10 and 20. Starting recently, we are supporting SSP 40 and 60 as well. So apart from that, the new thing that was added, which is going to be handy, is that ASA CX is supported in multiple context mode. And the other thing is you can filter packets captured on the ASA backplane. What that means is that if you want to determine whether the communication or whether the exchange of packets for a specific connection is going on the backplane, if it's being dropped on the backplane somewhere. So earlier we could not filter packets on the backplane. We could just apply captures on the backplane and capture everything. So now we can filter packets on the backplane based on the 5 tuple information. The other thing that was added is that you can configure CX in only as a monitor only mode. What that means is that CX is not going to participate in anything. It's just going to monitor the traffic like IPS promiscuous mode. And we also added support for NAT 624 along with ASA CX. And starting 9.x, so till before 9.x, CX was supported in 5585 SSP 10 and 20. Starting 9.x, we added support for ASA CX on the next gen firewalls, which is ASA 5512X to 5555X. And I guess that'll be all the features we could summarize in the short duration, the ASA new features, the CX new features. So I hope this has been a learning experience for you. I gave a quick overview about the ASA new features in 9.x and the CX support and some insight into how the CX works. So I guess we have the next polling question, the second polling question for you, which will help us understand, what you like about the CX part of it. So I'm going to give you some time for the second polling question. Second polling question is that which among these is the best feature you like on the ASA CX? First being granular URL control. Granular URL control means that you have a very deep level of control. You have a good level of control on what URLs you can allow or block. Second being granular app access control. You can control what applications can be used or what applications can be blocked. Third is zero-day attack protection. Attacks should be blocked by next-gen firewalls the day they are rolled out. Fourth and last being detailed event reporting. CX supports a multitude of events it can support, report or store. Thanks for answering our polling question. And I see most of you have found the granular app access control mechanism on the CX to be the best feature. And I do agree with you. That's something that every next-gen firewall should be aspiring for. More and more deeper level of app access. So with this, I'm going to hand it over to Rahul, our VPN expert, and he's going to talk about the new VPN features. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Amit. So I guess we've gone through a lot of the ASA firewall and the CX features, and I'm sure a lot of you are interested in looking forward to trying some of these features out. I'm going to start ahead with some of the VPN features that were also introduced in the ASA 9.x release. Actually, there are a ton of features that were introduced, and I'm going to try to cover the important ones out of the VPN features that were added. The highlights of the new VPN features are the VPN support in the multi-context ASA mode, which is a sought-after feature for a long time with the ASA. The second feature that I'm going to talk about is the ASA IPv6 support for the clientless and the AnyConnect SSL VPN. This is also a sought-after feature considering the move into the urgency of the move into IPv6. Thirdly, I'm just going to touch upon some of the next-gen encryption support or the suite piece support with the ASA in this release. And lastly, I'm just going to cover a new feature with the ASA called the Citrix Mobile Receiver. I'll give you more details when I touch upon this one. Yeah, firstly, the feature that everyone was looking for, right? VPN in multi-context mode. As all of you probably know, right? Multi-context primarily is used, to divide a single hardware into multiple virtualized, virtualized contexts or sections, each having its own, set of policies, set of routing tables, and so forth. Till the ASA 9.x release, there was no support for VPN at all. We have introduced VPN in the multi-context mode. As of today, the VPN support is only for site-to-site VPNs with the multi-context ASA mode. There is no support for remote access VPN as of yet. That being said, the ASA site-to-site VPN supports both IP version 1 and IP version 2 IPsec VPN. It also supports both IPv4 and IPv6 protocols. It also supports the next generation or the Suite P protocols, which I'm going to give a little more details on the next few slides. It also supports along with failover in the active standby and the active mode. A point to note, the ASA 5505 is the only platform that does not support this due to hardware limitations. It is also has to be said that the site-to-site VPN feature on the multi-context works exactly similar to how it would work on a single context mode, with the configurations being similar as how you would have it normally on the ASA these days. And also the commands are executed in either the admin or the user context with regards to VPN or crypto. Now, just to highlight, a bit on, how the licensing is going to work. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions on, how it's going to work with this new multi-context support. Now, the license is configured on the system context, and it is allocated from the system context using resource classes. Now, you must, allocate licenses from the resource class on the system context to the context that you want to have, VPN usage with. Now, just to touch upon what sort of licenses are there. As you know, there are two major types of licenses that we have with the ASA. One is the AnyConnect or the SSL VPN license, which supports clientless, AnyConnect VPN, and AnyConnect with IKE version 2. The other license is called the other VPN license, which is for all the IPsec VPN usage, which is for the site-to-site and the remote access with IKE version 1. Now, so there are two new types of resource types that are added to the resource manager. So basically, you can allocate other VPN license. That's basically the number of licenses a context can use. And also the second one is the other VPN license burst limit. Now, the other VPN license is straightforward, where you say, a particular context can only have this many particular licenses, number of licenses, and the other VPN burst license is basically to allow an oversubscription of the license above its limit, right? This will probably be explained a little bit more with the next slide. This is a sort of a best effort, feature where you can have a particular context go above its usage, if required. Just to give you a better understanding of what this means, I'll give you an example. This is an example with the ASA 5520 platform, right, which has 750 other VPN licenses as per the 5520 limit. Now, you can see that there are three contexts. One is the admin context, one is the user context 1, and the user context 2. Now, I'm sort of splitting the licenses here for 100 for the admin, user context 1 is 100, and 500 for the user context 2, which is a guaranteed license for each of these contexts. Now, if you see, I have a remaining 50 licenses that are left, which I have not allocated to any other license, any other admin or the user context. So basically, that 50 licenses can be used as bursts. Now, if you see user context 1 and user context 2, they have been configured for burst licenses of 50. So they can go up to a maximum of 150, provided the 50 burst licenses are not being used on any other context. So this is just an overview of how the licensing works with the IPsec site-to-site VPN with the multi-context mode. The configuration apart from that is very similar to what you'd see with the single context mode. Now moving on to IPv6. Prior to the ASA 9.x release, we had just a limited support for IPv6 with AnyConnect client, although we had a full support with the IPv4, of course. The AnyConnect, the ASA basically added almost full support for the AnyConnect VPN client with this particular release, right? So basically, just to highlight the key points, you could basically establish tunnels using IPv6 using both SSL and IP2, and there are IPv6 support for certain attributes that are sent down to the IPv6 clients. Now, the only thing that is not supported, as I said, it's not completely, but this is the only thing that's not supported with the IPv6 VPN is tunneling IPv6 through IP2 AnyConnect connections. So this is the only thing that's not supported as of now with the ASA IPv6 AnyConnect features. Now, just to give you a better understanding of how and what are the combinations or the support combinations that you see, if you look at it, the SSL or the TLS connection support entirely everything. You can have IPv6 over IPv4, IPv4 over IPv6, or a dual stack combination. But the only thing that the IP2 cannot do is when IPv6 is the assigned IP address, basically tunneling IPv6 over either IPv4 or IPv6. Now moving on to the next major feature with the VPN. This is about the ASA 9.x next-gen encryption. Now, what is next-gen encryption? It's basically two parts that we're going to cover here. One is the NSA, the U.S. Federal Security Agency Suite B protocols, as what they call it, or the next-gen encryption is what is known worldwide, and also the second half, which is IPsec version 3. Now NSA Suite B is a sort of standard recognized set of protocols which are recognized by the National Security Agency in the U.S. For its security prowess, and these are a set of algorithms that are defined in the RFC 4869. These are recommended algorithms to be used by federal and international agencies, especially with the federal agencies these days. Just to see what these algorithms are, the AES GCM, right, is the encryption algorithm that is defined in the Suite B, and AES GMAC, which is the authentication algorithm. Apart from that, there are two elliptic curve algorithms. One is the Diffie-Hellman key exchange, groups 19, 20, and 21, and one is the elliptic curve DSA, which is a digital signature algorithm, is also a part of this Suite B protocols list. And lastly, there is also support for the SHA-256, 384, and 512 IPsec packet authentication. Now, these put together is what we call next-gen encryption or Suite B protocols. Apart from that, as I mentioned before, the next-gen encryption also encompasses IPsec version 3. IPsec version 3 basically is three main parts, which is ESP, ESP version 3, 4096-bit RSA key support, and Diffie-Hellman Group 24. Now, ESP version 3 I'll talk about in detail in the coming slide. 4096-bit RSA key support was not present prior to the ASA 9.x release. We only had a support to 2048. Now 4096 adds a better security to the ASA and the incoming connections with the RSA keys, and Diffie-Hellman Group 24 also provides the same support. Now the ASA 9.x next-gen encryption only applies to IKV2 connections, not IKV1 VPN connections with the ASA. Now, going to the next slide, which should probably give you an understanding of what is the platform support. Not all platforms support this. Some of the platforms, especially the single core platforms, do not support all of them. This is basically a platform support table that you can use as a reference, for configuring the Suite B protocols on your ASA. Some of them have been highlighted as a future release, where you'll add either hardware or software support for those releases. As mentioned before, the IPsec v3 comprises of the ESP version 3 features. Some of the features that are relevant in the ESP version 3 is the ICMP error validation. This is basically something where the ASA validates every ICMP error message before they forward it, in order to ensure that the ICMP error message is not part of a DDoS attack or a DOS attack, right? And they are part of something that you've already sent through the IPsec tunnel. So basically, it is only a response to a packet that you have sent initially. So this is a sort of DOS attack, validation, before actually forwarding a packet. Now, fragmentation policy per tunnel. This is basically, this feature was there at an interface level. Basically, you could play around with the DF bit, either copy, clear, or set, which is the don't fragment bit set on the packet. And this feature is only available at an interface level. So basically, any traffic going to any IPsec tunnel would hit the same policy. Now we have made this an individual tunnel setting. That means you could have different fragmentation policies per tunnel. So you don't have to worry about affecting any other tunnels by making this change. A few of the other features are the dummy packet generation, is to inject periodic or random dummy packets into the IPsec data stream to prevent traffic analysis. And PMTU aging is basically to control the time that a PMTU update has effect. So as of now, any update that the pre 9.x releases, the PMT update will be effective till the end of the IPsec tunnel, and you would have to clear the IPsec tunnel for a new PMT update to take effect. Now this provides a timeout for that update to time out and then get new updates. The last feature that I'm going to talk about here today is the Citrix mobile receiver. I'm not sure how many of you know, but for the mobile devices like the iPhone, iPad, iPod, and the Android devices, Citrix has its own app called the Citrix Receiver, which it can use to connect to a Citrix Access Gateway and access applications or like Zen app or Zen desktop resources. So the prior to the ASA releasing this feature, the only device that could act as an access gateway between the clients on the internet and between the Zen app or Zen desktop infrastructure was the Citrix Access Gateway. Now, basically what we've done is reverse engineered that and added the same functionality into the ASA. So here the ASA is going to act as a proxy between the Citrix mobile device, which is the Citrix Receiver app, and the infrastructure, the Citrix infrastructure which you already have. So there is no change required from an infrastructure on the Citrix point of view. The only change can be you can use the ASA along with the other features that you have apart from the Citrix mobile receiver without affecting any of the existing functionalities. So the Citrix mobile receiver, just to give you a small heads up on, supports the iPad, the iPod, the iPod Touch basically, and the iPhone. These are the devices it can support. Apart from that, the Android and the Android phone and the tablet is also supported with the Citrix mobile receiver on the ASA. We'll be adding more devices for this support based on help from Citrix also. But as of now, these are the supported versions or the tested versions that we have with the ASA. And just to see how it looks for a user, right? So when you access the Citrix receiver application, you ideally, in a case where you didn't have the ASA before, you would put the Citrix Access Gateway, and now, as I said, there's no difference in what the user experiences other than using the Citrix Access Gateway. You'd use the ASA, and once that is done, what you can do is basically access your desktop, or you can basically access certain applications that you want users to access based on credentials or based on their authority and the resources they have with them. So this is in short all the VPN features. There are a lot more VPN features, unfortunately, which we couldn't cover today. But be sure to just go ahead and see all the new features that have been added with the ASA 9.x in the release notes itself. Now, a lot of you might have questions on how do I upgrade to 9.x. These are some of the important information that I want to share with you regarding upgrading to 9.x. Firstly, for people who are still running a pre 8.3 release, you cannot upgrade directly to 9.0. You should first upgrade to 8.3 or 8.4 to migrate successfully. You could face problems if you do not follow the steps. Also, please be sure to just go through the release notes before any upgrade done on the ASA. Secondly, it's always recommended, we at TAC always recommend this, to back up the entire configuration before any upgrade, because as you know, the upgrade will change the commands as per the new supported commands, but the downgrade does not revert back all changes. So it is always preferred to do a backup, and as a backup tool, a lot of you that I've interacted with have always asked, what is the best way to back it up. Use the ASTM backup and restore tool. So if you open up the ASTM, on top you have the tools bar, and one of the sections is the ASTM backup restore tool. Now the ASTM backup restore tools backs up your entire configuration, including plugins, including XML files and all that could be used, especially with I've noticed with the VPN devices or the VPN configurations, a lot of devices, the ASTM backup tool is preferred. Also, another best practice that we always recommend, if you are running a failover pair, use a zero downtime upgrade, because this way you don't have to have a downtime, and you can always at any point of time run with a single ASA and use that ASA to pass traffic while the other one is upgrading. So again, as a recommendation, always follow the procedure given exactly on the Cisco documentation page. Right, now there's a few references that you can use. As I mentioned, the ASA 9.x release notes. This is a Bible if you want to go into the ASA 9.x. It talks about the new features. It talks about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, the limitations, and the supportability for the ASA 9.x. So please have a go through this one. The ASA failover upgrade procedure, as I mentioned, is also given in that documentation, both for a single device and an active standby device also. And also there's a CX white paper which gives you more information into what Namit talked today about the ASA CX in detail. You can always have a look at what are the ideas behind the CX, and what are the concepts that are being used in the CX these days.
Time for the third polling question. The question is, What would you like to see in the further sessions? So the option A is more in-depth ASA security features. Option B, IP version 6 security. Option C, IKE version 2 and next-gen security protocols. And option D, troubleshooting next-gen firewalls. Please take a moment to respond to the polling question. It's been open on the right-hand side of the console. Respond to the polling question. I'd like to thank Namit and Rahul for a great presentation. Also, thank you everyone for participating in all the event polls. Now it's time to answer some of the questions that our viewers have submitted today. By the way, if you can't stay for us for the Q&A, please be sure to click on the evaluation that will pop up once you close the browser to let us know how this session met your business needs and expectations. You can also access the survey via the URL, which will be provided shortly in the chat. Okay, so let me take a few questions. So the first question is, it's either IPS SSP or CX SSP can be used per ASA chases. So Namit or Rahul, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, so we can use the IPS SSP along with the ASA platform or the CX SSP along with the ASA platform. We cannot use IPS and CX together, but yeah, we can use IPS plus ASA or CX plus ASA on the SSP chassis. Just to add to that, this is the hardware we are talking about. Also, in the recent next-gen firewalls, we are supporting software IPS plus software CX on ASA. So you have ASA plus CX plus IPS, with CX and IPS being in software, but in the newer versions, the 9.x release.
Okay, thank you, Namit. And another question is dynamic routing supported on all platforms or only on 5580?
Yep, we support dynamic routing on all platforms. There is no restriction with specific to 5580. We support dynamic routing on all platforms, and as you saw, we support it even in multi-context now.
Okay. One other question that is the advanced feature in firewall technology, dynamic inspection by default for all the services rather than limited services using MPF, and the other one is SSL decipher or SSL proxy services, HTTPS for TS secure traffic.
So I guess the question is that these two features are supported on Palo Alto firewalls. Are we going to support it on ASA? But yeah, I guess, I mean, we already support it on the ASA, right? The MPF is only used to control what traffic should be sent to the CX. Now, based, the advanced level of inspection, that what is the traffic is something that is determined by the CX. So the MPF is not to be confused with the inspection. MPF is only being used to send traffic to the CX. And if you're talking about the filtering capacity of ASA itself, that is restricted. That's why we use the ASA CX module. That's the next-gen filtering device. And about the second question with SSL proxy, yep, CX, as we already told, already supports SSL proxy, and it does filter HTTPS traffic. You have a very good level of control on what you allow and what you do not allow.
Okay, thank you, Namit. There is another question that says, question is related to the slides that is available in the PDF copy. So request you all to download using the same link. It is now available on the firewalling community in the Cisco support committee. Thank you. So I think that concludes our Q&A portion for today's event. So just to let you know, Namit and Rahul will continue to answer your queries via the Ask the Expert, and this will be running from today till November 1st. So feel free to post your queries, anything that you have, follow-up question or related to this topic. They will be answering them in this Ask the Expert discussion, which is hosted in the Expert Corner. Okay, so you might have seen the ad, a trivia question that was in the banner for all the promo that we have done for this webcast. The question was, what does the year 1997 Security and Cisco all have in common? The options are, in 1997, Cisco first released ASA, Adaptive Security Appliance. Option B, in 1997, Cisco Systems announced the industry's first enterprise-wide security initiative, which was just the start of things to come in the enterprise security space for Cisco, including Cisco ASA, VPN, firewalls, and the Cisco ASA 9X. And the option C is, in 1997, Cisco earned a patent for the ASA. So you can post your responses. The question is open in the poll. Okay, so and we appreciate your feedback when you submit the survey, and you will get a chance to win $50 Amazon gift card. And the survey will be popping up once you close this browser window. And here are some of the expert webcast that is upcoming. This is in Japanese. The topic is Cisco IS Routers Memory Buffer Troubleshooting by Ryota, and it will be on November 5th. And there is another webcast in Portuguese, that is Cisco Telepresence Fundamentals, Configuration and Support. This is on November 6th. And the expert is Bruno. So if you speak any of these languages, feel free to register and attend our webcast. There is another webcast in October in English. The topic is Cisco Nexus 5000 and 6000 Fiber Channel over Ethernet, Important Caveats and Best Practices. This will happen on Tuesday, November 12th, at 9 a.m. San Francisco time. And the expert is Vinayak Sudame. The registration link is here, also on the Cisco Support Committee Expert Corner. So feel free to register. It's all free. And if you speak Russian, there is an upcoming webcast. The topic is Identity Services Engine, typical setup in a multi-node deployment. It's happening on Tuesday, November 19th. That's 12 p.m. Moscow time or 10 a.m. Brussels time. Again, you can visit the Russian community or you can register using the link provided in the presentation. And here are some of the Ask the Expert events which are live, currently running in the community, English community. The first one is on topic packet capture capabilities of Cisco routers and switches by experts Hitesh and Rahul. They are from the High Touch Technical Support team. They have also created a video for this topic, so feel free to look at the video and ask questions to them directly. Another one which is running is Layer 2 Security on Cisco Catalyst Platform by Wilson. And both these events will end on November 1st. So feel free to browse through these events. And these are some of the upcoming events which will start on November 4th. The first topic is integrating Cisco ISE 1.2 for BYOD by Eric and Todd. The second one is IPv6 routing protocols, and this is from our Cisco designated VIP member, Peter. And both of these, as the expert, will start on November 4th. So look out for these events as well. Okay, so our presence in social media and iTunes keeps expanding. Visit our community and visit our several channels from here. We are on all the social media channels that you see here. So feel free to access the community through these channels. And we continue to expand our reach in local languages. We have communities in other languages like we mentioned earlier, that is Spanish, Portuguese, Japanese, Polish, and Russian. So if you speak any of these languages, feel free to come and collaborate, join these communities. If you have not explored the Cisco Support Committee yet, please take a moment to check out this excellent resource. The URL is supportforums.cisco.com. And recently we have started the rating for documents and blogs and videos. So feel free to rate, and this will make sure that the content gets the appropriate rating so that it can be updated. Okay, and if you know about the mobile app, so we recently had the latest version. So you can access the community and all the localized community as well through the mobile app. So feel free to download using the link which is mentioned here. It's available for iOS and Android and BlackBerry. Okay, so time to answer the trivia question that we have asked earlier. The question was, what does the year 1997 security and Cisco all have in common? The option is 2. And I see, yes, I see a good percentage of you have answered the option 2. Yes, that is correct. Cisco announced the industry's first enterprise-wide security initiative, which was just start of the things to come in the enterprise security space for Cisco, including Cisco ASA, VPN, firewalls, and current ASA 9X. Okay, so before signing off, please take a few minutes to complete your evaluation or survey for today's session. This will help us all address your business needs and interests in the future. So this concludes our today's session. Thank you to our experts, Namit, Rahul, for sharing your expertise with us today. And also thanks to our panelists, Rudresh and Prapanch, for answering some of the technical questions. Thank you and have a great day.